There we go. All right, so I'm going to share my screen again. And that way everybody can see a report, because at the very beginning of the report, there's some information here that you might want. And it is, you can see, I mean, it's going to have your birth time and all of that stuff. You guys gave me that, so it's not something new to you. But what may be new to you is all of the zodiac information, like where it falls in your chart, what sign, what degree, etc. So you have this little table here. And in this table, you have the planet, and let's see, they're using Sun, Moon, Mercury, they use all of them, pretty much the main ones, but then they also have these other two pieces here called midheaven and ascendant. The ascendant is on the 9 o'clock position of your chart. It's the point at which you entered into the planet. It was the sign on the eastern horizon at the moment you were born. And it is the way that the chart begins, and then from there everything moves around counterclockwise. And then the midheaven is up at the noon position, so it's up at the top part of your chart. It is the divider between the 9th house and the 10th house. And the houses are the areas of the chart where the action is taking place. The 10th house is the career or your profession, what you do in the world or how you're recognized and known in the world, while the first house is what the ascendant starts at, and it is all about you as far as what you look like, what your viewpoint is, etc., etc. Hello there. And then the next thing over you'll see is the sign that each of those planets are in. So for Debbie's chart here that I have up, the sun was in Taurus, the moon in Capricorn, Mercury in Aries, Venus in Taurus, and on down the row. So if you've ever wondered, well, where's my moon? Well, now you know. Or where's Jupiter in my natal chart? Well, now you know, because it's right here. The next column over is the position, which just tells you what degree of the sign it's at. So the way you read this, so Debbie's sun is in Taurus, and it's at 3 degrees, 22 minutes of Taurus. Can everybody see how that just sort of looks weird? 3 degrees, TA, shorthand for Taurus, 22 minutes, just telling us where in that degree span it is. We rarely use the minutes, but they're always given. So it's no big deal, right? So we would look at this and say, if there's 59 seconds in a minute, then this is less than halfway through the 3rd degree of Taurus. Not that anybody really cares, right? Just 3 degrees Taurus is really all you need to know. Then next over, it tells you what house that puts it in your chart. And of course, the houses, there are, I don't know, maybe 15 different house types. And it just depends on the system that you're using. I use Placidus houses. This one's using, I think this one's using Placidus as well. It doesn't really tell me. Aspect set, nope, that's not it either. So I'm pretty sure it's using Placidus as well. And here, it will tell you what your house cusps are. That's getting a little more technical than what you need for this report, but if you're interested to know, it just says, okay, what degree of the sign does each of your houses start at? So the first house here starts at, the first house cusp is 6 degrees Sagittarius. So it tells you where that house begins, or where that sign begins, and in what house it is, and goes through the whole thing. Any questions about the chart here? Nope. Everybody got it? Hi. Hi, Stephanie. How are you? I've got everybody sort of unmuted. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. If it gets too noisy, just let me know, and then I can mute everybody. All right, so that's within the first page or so of your report. And then if you go on, this is the part that gets to be really interesting for everyone. I broke each of your reports into 4 pieces. That is the January to March, April to June, July to September, and then October to December. And so what you see in the first couple of pages is this thing called report highlight. So it's going to give us the highlights for the first 3 months of the year. So you can see here, there's all of January. She doesn't seem to have any highlights for February. And then there's other highlights for March. So the first the first report highlights is giving you for the full 3-month period of time what your highlights are. And these are the key things that are important to YOU, right? It's specific to you because this is your report. And then the next thing that you're going to see says report highlights again, but this is the monthly highlights. So this gives you the January monthly highlights. So she had quite a few for January. And then it's going to start the report for January. And I'm going to scroll through this pretty quickly and then we'll go backwards, okay? So then it's going to start the whole report for January. And you can see, look at this, on her January 1, she's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe more, 9, 10, 11 things happening, right? So you can see why it is I wanted to do this, because these reports can get complex very quickly. So if we just scroll through all of January, let me get my other thingy over here. Oh, that ain't going to do it. Okay. When we get to the end of January, you're going to see where February gets ready to start. You're going to have another report highlights. But remember, she didn't have any highlights for February. So it should just be a blank page for her. God, look at all of that. She's going to have a busy January. Debbie, where are you? We're getting to the end. And then here we go. Right in here is where she would have February highlights, but she really doesn't have any. Right? So you guys might have a February highlight or a March highlight. There might be months where you don't have any. That it just means, it doesn't mean that there's nothing happening. It's just nothing real key is happening. Okay? Now, let's take a look at each one of these. Any questions about that so far? Okay. Now, let's just look at her first day of February here. So what you see first is the date, and then what the name of the transit is. So for her, the moon trine the sun. Always, always, you're going to have the planet. The first planet that's shown here is the one that's moving into the other planet. So the moon here is moving into a trine with her sun. Then let's see if we can find something else besides the moon, because the moon's always moving. Here's another one, Mars, trine Pluto. So Mars is the planet that's moving, and it's moving into a trine with Pluto. If you see it the other way, then you're seeing the transiting Pluto moving into her natal Mars, but this is her natal, or her transiting Mars moving into her transiting Pluto. Does that make sense? I mean, oh, I just said that backwards. Her transiting Mars moving into her natal Pluto. Make sense? Okay. And then you'll see here periodically where a planet is changing from one house to another in your personal chart. It will say Mercury enters the third, meaning Mercury entering her third house.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense? Okay, and then over here, you're going to see, now I don't know if I told the report to tell you guys your progressions. I don't see anything that says progression yet. So it's probably always going to say transit. So it's just telling you this is a transiting planet. It's moving through a transit, not a progression or a solar return, that type of thing. And it'll tell you what the signs are and what the house is for you. So her moon square sun is a transit that's happening in Aquarius and Taurus in her second and her fifth house, right? And then underneath, it will tell you the time that it becomes exact. So it enters on 2/3/19, it becomes exact on 2/3/19, and it leaves on 2/3/19. Makes total sense because the moon moves quickly. Let's go back to some of them that are longer, like this one, it won't give you an end date. Let's see what else she's got here. Huh. I'm going to go back to January, so give me a minute while I scroll back here. Because I noticed in people's charts it said solar eclipse. Right, so the first thing you're going to run into just about in January on your report is going to be your solar eclipse. And if you have, like this one for Debbie, she's got the sun opposing Uranus during the solar eclipse. And then it gives you a little bit of an explanation as to what that means. And this one actually tells how long it's going to be, right? This enters on January 5th. It's exact on January 5th, but it doesn't leave this until July 2nd. Why? Because the solar eclipse is going to last until the next solar eclipse. So it's giving us to July 2nd, which is the date of the next solar eclipse. So if you're looking at your own report, you're going to see that. And, oh, this is her highlights page. So the highlights come first, then the monthly highlights, and then the month by day. Every day of the month is going to be listed with something that's going on. Now, what some of you astute people already recognized is that some days it's going to tell you like 10 different things, and they may all be different, or they could be opposing. For example, let's see if we have something in Debbie's here that can tell us this. So you may have a day like this one where the moon's entering the 12th house, and it's all about coming to grips with the past or finding things that are hidden, you know, things coming up from the depths. And another transit may be occurring in her 5th house. There isn't that particular day, but let's say there is. And it's saying, oh, this is a fun day. Go out and play. Love and romance is highlighted, where they seemingly are at opposites of each other. And that is so not unusual. On any given day, we can have several different things happening, and some of them may be contrary to one another. And it's just the way it goes. It's kind of a balancing act, right? Some things may be overly positive and other things overly negative, and they may seem like they're pulling each other in opposite directions. It's just holding the tension of opposites. What you need to do when you see something like that you find is contrary, see what planets are involved. Because, for example, if it's the moon is going to move fairly quickly throughout that day. So it may be that in the morning it's going to be, you know, doing one thing, but in the afternoon it's changed over and it's in a completely different place and it has a completely different energy. If it's more of a Venus, Mercury, Mars, an outer planet, they move slower. So it may be a conflict it's having with the moon. I hope you guys are following me on that. Does everybody understand? Okay.
Yes.
I see head shaking. Lisa, I don't hear you, but are you saying something?
Yes, I understand.
Perfect.
I just mute myself so I don't make extra noises.
That's great. I make enough noise. All right, so then when you get to the end, let's see, did I do it for these reports? Hold on, I'm going to pull this all the way down. You guys need to close your eyes for a moment, maybe. Nope, I didn't do it. Good. At the end of these reports, sometimes there's this big graph, and it can scare the heck out of you. I don't ever use it if I don't have to, so I'm glad to see I left it out. The way that I would use this, the way that I do use this, is I take and I pull out at the beginning of the month, I just print one page of the report highlights for that month. This one I did for someone yesterday, and it was all of January. We were doing a monthly reading for January for her. And when I pulled this out, then I can see at a glance all of the big news items that are happening for me that month, or for her in this case, that month. And then I take that and I put it on, if it's mine, I put it on my own calendar. So I have that date circled. For example, for her, Jupiter's moving into the 8th house on January 6th. If that were my chart, I would be putting that on my calendar, because that's going to kind of tell me about how I'm going to handle incoming money, right? Maybe I need to remember to pay bills. Maybe there's a big bill coming due and I need to make sure I do that. And it's, you know, just giving us a quick little hint about what is happening for you on that particular day. And then if you want to, you can print out day by day. So if you're going to print it, I don't know if you guys, and if this is rudimentary, please forgive me. It's not that I think you guys don't know how to do these things, but let me see if I can move this out of the way. So if you wanted to print off a day, just one day, let's go back up to the report highlights. So every one of yours was done in PDF. And up here at the top, it tells you the page number that you're on. So if you're going to print, you're going to hit print, and you're going to bring it down to page, cross out 73 pages because you really don't want to print all 73 pages. But if you just want to print page 3 and then hit print, it's going to print just that page for you. That's how I do that. So I don't have to print all 73 pages. Over the course of the month, I might, but I'm not doing that all up front. Now, each of you also got a chart, a round chart with your report. It was the first page. And that's going to help you figure out the houses. So when you're looking at that report, the chart, what you see in this inside of that chart is where all of the planets are located. And the pie-shaped pieces are called the houses. And you can see from, I don't have a copy of her. Do I have hers? No, I didn't keep that part on each person's. But anyway, you've got hopefully you guys got your round charts. And you can easily see what houses they're being hit, that are being hit by the transit. Did you guys get that? Yay! Exactly. I put the one with the Earth in the middle.
Yes.
So if you think of the left-hand side, the 9 o'clock position as the starting point, and everything moves around counterclockwise through that chart. So you've got the first house at that ascendant line, and then the second house, the third house, and so forth. Does that make sense? So everything's moving that direction, unless it's a planet that's retrograde, in which case then it tends to go the other direction, clockwise, which boggles the mind when you think about that, but that's how that works. All right, so does anybody have any specific questions about their own reports that they want to take a look at?
Not specific, but can you do a brief summary of 1 through 12 houses, what they represent?
Sure thing. The first house, actually, you know what, guys? I actually have a document. Let me see if I can stop sharing. And in the chat, can't I put a document link there? Oh, it would have to be shared somewhere, wouldn't it? All right, well, let me just do it on the recording, and then I can email you guys that if you'd like. The first house is the house of self. It's all about you. It's all about what you look like, what mask you wear in the world, and what your personality is like. The second house is all about the money that you earn, how you earn money, how you deal with possessions, what you value. The third house is the house of communication, and it also represents the mind and how you learn. I also think of this house as when there's a lot going on in a third house in someone's chart. I think of it as someone who's expressive in their words or through writing or things like that. The fourth house is home and family. It's your foundation, like where the roots get put into the ground. The fifth house is the fun house. It's about joy. It's about play, about creativity. It's love. It's romance. And in some respects, it's also about risk-taking.
Sorry, that was my phone.
Did we enter the swamp?
You can mute yourself if you want.
So then we go to the sixth house, which is the house of work and service and health. And then now you're crossing the next bold line that says DC or DS. That's the descendant. And that house next is the house of marriage or business partnerships. It is also the house of open enemies, people that you know don't like you. And then we move up to the eighth house, which is sex, death, and rebirth. But it is also the house of other people's money. Because now if you'll notice, we're opposite of the other houses, right? So we've got the eighth house opposite of the second house. So if the second house is about the money you earn and how you earn it and what your values are, the eighth house then is about money that comes into you through a spouse, perhaps, through inheritances, credit, debt, loans, lottery winnings, interest from investments, that kind of thing. And it is also the house of death and rebirth, so it has this whole transformational energy going on. The ninth house is the house of growth and expansion. It is also the house of the higher self, or in some respects, it's also about higher education, where you're, not just the elementary school, high school level, but now we're looking at college and above level. The 10th house, which is on the other side of that MC line, at the noon position about, that is the house of career and profession. It is also the house of your authority and your authentic self. So this would be also kind of the place where how other people see you, not how you see yourself, but how they see you in the world. Like, are you known as a philanthropist? Are you known as an artist? That kind of thing. And the 11th house is the house of groups, friends, your hopes, your dreams, your wishes, your aspirations. And it is also the house of money coming in from the work that you do. And then the 12th house is the house of the hidden, the subconscious, the unconscious mind, the patterns that have been instilled in you from childhood or even from other lifetimes. It is mainly the house of limits, blocks, fears, the things, self-sabotaging behaviors, the place where you get held back. And literally, it is called the house of the hidden because it's often where things are happening, but you're not quite seeing the whole picture. So it's a difficult house to deal with sometimes. It's harder to predict than any of the other houses what's going to happen during that time it's transiting the 12th. If you have planets there, their power is hidden from you in some respects. So does that help, Lisa?
Yes, it does. And is there a problem if there's absolutely nothing going on in some of the houses?
Ooh, great question, because I get that one all the time. It does not mean that there's nothing happening in that house. Can you give me an example, Lisa, of a house that you have with nothing in it? Like the 12th house or?
House 1.
Okay. What is the sign on that house? Can you tell?
Well, there's at the ascendant level, there's Scorpio.
Okay.
And underneath that is Sagittarius.
Okay.
But there's nothing inside that.
But no planets in there.
No.
So the house begins then in Scorpio. Is that what you're saying? Because you're ascendant to Scorpio?
Well, it's kind of confusing me because 1, 2, 3 goes opposite direction of what you were saying you read the chart in. That goes counterclockwise, and you were saying you read it clockwise.
No, you read it counterclockwise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's only read clockwise if a planet's moving in retrograde.
Okay. Then I misunderstood that. So then it starts with Scorpio. Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So even though you don't have anything in that house, or it appears you have nothing in that house, there are planets that actually rule the sign of Scorpio and have an influence over your first house. And that would be the planet Mars and the planet Pluto, right? So what you would do in that case is find where you have Mars and where you have Pluto, because they're going to have an influence over your personality. So if, let me see if I have yours, Lisa. Would you mean?
My Mars is in number 6 and my Pluto is in number 9.
So okay, that's perfect, right? Because number 9 is the house of your higher self, and it has an influence over your own personal viewpoint in the world. And that would be, you do meditation, right? And you do a lot of spiritual work. So Pluto is influencing your career choices by having that influence of the ascendant in Scorpio. And you said Mars was in the 6th house?
Mars looks like a man sign, or
yeah, it's the man sign.
6th house. My man and woman are there.
You have man and woman in the 6th house of work, right? The work environment, the environment you find yourself in, the people you work with. So it's kind of interesting because it's then probable that you work in a predominantly masculine environment, and at other times you're working in a predominantly feminine environment. Like there's a split going on in the work that you do, because both of them are taking precedence in that house. But Mars itself is the dynamic action that's connected with Scorpio, and that's taking you into the esoteric world, the esoteric realm. So even though you may have a day job that you really love, or that you work at, your real love or your real mask that you wear in the world is much more spiritual and much more esoteric, metaphysical. And
Wow,
then you can also look at Sagittarius there, because Sagittarius is included in your first house, right?
Yes.
And that's ruled by Jupiter. So where's Jupiter in your chart?
Let's see. What does that look like? Let's see here.
Yeah, Jupiter, I was going to say it looks like a J, but it doesn't. It looks kind of like
that's in my second house.
Money. So you make money also from your personal work that you do. So in other words, you're almost the, I don't want to call you the mouthpiece, but the head of something. So
Yes.
So you're making money, like you're the head of that.
Yes.
Okay. So you can find a lot of information, even though there are no planets in there, based just solely on the sign that's sitting on that first house.
Wow. Thank you.
So it's all inclusive. I mean, you may think there's nothing going on, but there's a lot going on, even if you don't think there is.
Okay.
And then, of course, right now you have Jupiter transiting that first house, right? Jupiter's transiting Sagittarius right now, moving through it, basically. So you are in the process of personally growing, personally expanding, and whether that's your viewpoint, the things that you do, the world around you is expanding. And if you have your natal Jupiter in there as well, then you're also going to be having a Jupiter return, which says this will be the first time in 12 years that that's happened. So you're starting a new sort of plateau. You've been on a plateau and now you're moving back up.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
That's a whole lot more than you thought it was going to be, huh?
Yeah, look blank.
Oh. Was that pretty clear to everybody else how we worked through that? If you have an open house with no planets in it, it doesn't mean that nothing's going on there, because we can look to the sign that's on the beginning of that house or the cusp of that house and the planet that rules that, and see how it affects that particular part of your chart. Does that make sense to everybody else?
Yep, it does.
Do you have another chart you can add saying which planet rules which house, or does that say on here somewhere?
No, but I can send all that to you guys. Actually, I've posted that somewhere before, so let me think about that. I could have swore I put it in docs so it could be shared. So I'll find that for you guys, because I have one for the zodiac signs, I have one for the houses, and I have one for the planets and what they mean. So it's like a cheat sheet, if you will, of goodies to tell you where all that happens.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just going to make a quick note of everybody that's here in person. And Melanie, I'm never going to remember that. And then Michelle and Colleen and Lisa. Okay. And Steph.
And Suzanne.
There, and then I can send that to you guys. And then anybody else can get it too if they want. But Suzanne, good morning, evening, Suzanne. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. How are you?
Good. So, all right. Does anybody have any other questions about that report?
So you were going into how you use the report for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if there was more that you did besides looking at your highlight page and sticking some of those notes on your calendar. Is there other things that you do with it?
Yes. Well, here's pretty much, I am definitely not someone that's going to print out every day. But if there's a particular day that I know that I have something big going on, or if I want to look at that day just to see how, energy may, let's say I'm looking for a date that I want to do another webinar in January, let's say. So I'm going to go get my January list of report highlights, and I'm going to look and see what day seems relatively important. Like, are there some good things happening? And then I'll choose a day based on that. Or if I know that I have something else, let's say, let's say May something, I'm traveling to Vegas. I think it's May 1st. So I could go to my report for May 1st and see what the transits are for that day to discover whether I'm going to, is Mercury retrograde that day, or did something happen, is something big going to happen that day? So I'm prepared. If I have a big speech to give, or if I'm going to go for a job opportunity and I see some real negative kind of things coming up, then I might, want to time it differently. So it's really, I think the key thing for everybody to remember is this is a way for you to tap into what happens for you. You'll start to notice patterns, like the pattern where, I think I don't know if you were on the show one morning, Lisa, but we talked about how people have personal new moons and personal full moons, right, that are out of sync with the regular moon cycle. So if you know that you have a personal new moon in Virgo, then you may want to wait until the moon's in Virgo to do something new, right, or to start something. So eventually, I'm not saying you guys are going to know this tomorrow or January 1st when you go to look at this report for the first time, but you're going to get an idea or a sense of how things are working for you, what patterns are going on. And the keynotes are, where are those big things, right? I gave you, when in the webinar, you had the what do you call those, slides with all the different things that are going on for each month. And you can look at that too and say, oh, okay, January 5th is the solar eclipse. I'm going to look at January 5th and say, oh dear, the sun's trine Mercury that day. Actually, there's no oh dear about that. That's awesome. And on January 5th, the sun is trining this person's ascendant. Yowza, right? Those are good things. So in your personal, report, you're going to be able to find that kind of information. So I'm going to pick on you first. Do you have yours in front of you, Stephanie?
Yeah, I do.
Well, let's pick on you for a minute.
Okay.
Not that one, but go to the report part. The report.
The timeline?
Yeah.
This
Did
one?
you print it all out?
No, well, I just printed out the highlights for January 1st through April. So the first 3 months.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So tell me what it says for you for January 5th.
Oh, I remember January 5th. I saw I had like heaps of stuff. Actually, no. There's only on the highlights page.
Yeah,
There's
the
3.
highlights page.
There's just 3.
Okay.
I got Sun trine Mars, solar eclipse, exact, Capricorn Virgo, 11th to 7th.
Okay, that's the sign it's in, right?
Yeah, so Sun trine Mars, solar eclipse, Capricorn Virgo, 11th to 7th, exact, enters the 5th. Oh, my question is which time zone is this? Is that, for me, is that the 6th? Because I'm in.
It could be based on your place of birth. You were born in Seattle.
Okay.
Right?
I was. Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be it's going to be based in Seattle.
Oh, it is. Okay.
So you
All
may
right.
need to add 18 hours or something
Or
to it,
20
right?
or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's fine. I always do that. My brain works that way.
Yeah. It always is going to go. These reports go based on where you were born.
Where you were born. Okay. Yeah. That's good. All right. So there's Sun trine Mars, and then there's Sun trine Moon.
On the same day?
On the same day. And then Sun trine Pluto on the same day.
Holy cow, girl.
Only on January 1st. I know. I get the good stuff, don't I?
Well, first of all, I mean, when you start to read what each one of those things mean, I think you get the sense that that's a pretty powerful day for you, that this is an eclipse that's going to be very powerful for you. Mm-hmm. Some of you may look at your January 5th and you may have nothing, about it other than the solar eclipse. And some of you are going to be like, in her case, she's got a lot going on, but they're trines.
They're trines.
So they're nice.
Trines are good,
easy, right? They're ease and flow of these energies. So you'll have high energy, right? A good amount of action-oriented energy. You'll also have Sun trine the Moon, and that sometimes is a little bit tricky emotionally, particularly because the Sun is trining Pluto. Watch out that day for power struggles. with anybody,
Okay.
men in particular.
Oh,
So spouse, anybody male that you work with. But know that that is happening on a solar eclipse day. So it gives you a new entry. This is also a, no, it's not. It's the full moons at the beginning of the year that are super moons. So that these are very powerful gateways this first couple of months. And so you have, you know, a new action route available to you, maybe a new emotional understanding or a power struggle going on with some people that are in or around your world.
Okay. And does it, so do I, when it says Sun trine Pluto, do I go to my natal chart and look at where Pluto sits, and is that like a clue about?
It's going to tell you
what it might.
You're going to look for your natal Pluto, and then you're going to know that the Sun is going to be on the 7th house.
Yes.
So the power struggle is definitely going to be with a spouse.
Yeah.
Or a business partner.
Or business partner. Yeah. Okay.
So
and same with Mars is also in 7th. So and it's Sun trine Mars and Sun trine Pluto.
So if you can go hang out with all your girlfriends that day, or maybe send your husband out of town.
I already have plans. It's great. Okay. So yes.
This is good. Because the last thing you really need to be around is someone who he may be very cranky that day himself.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I feel
but it's like the weather
those are good things. But they also tell you that things can get out of control very quickly and very easily.
Okay. So what was I gonna the trine is good. What about oppositions and squares and things like that? And those are a little bit different, right?
Right, they're challenges, right? And in opposition, both planets are tugging like in opposite directions, right? If it's Venus and Mars, of course, you've got the masculine and the feminine in opposition to one another. Okay. If it's the Sun and Pluto, this is where we get bigger power struggles than the ones that you're going to have. There's kind of this, like, this is the dynamic of ease in the one you're experiencing. But if they were in opposition, it could be really bad.
So it's kind of like almost like a weather forecast in a way.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it.
It's like, bring your umbrella, girl. Bring your umbrella, girl.
Bring your umbrella. That's a great one. Is
that it?
Uh-huh.
January 5th, and I've just put it in my diary.
Yep. Everybody should put that one in your
star weather today.
That's a day of an eclipse, so you've got to have that one circled in your calendar. That is January 20th. Now, for you, that eclipse may be on the 6th. Stephanie.
Yeah. Oh, true. Yeah, because I'm a day ahead.
Yeah, because you're a day ahead.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I had another question, but I can't remember it.
Well, pop in when you do. As Maya, definitely whatever I'm going to send to the group, I will send to you because I wrote your name down with everybody else's. All right. Any other questions going on here in people's minds besides confusion?
It's making sense, actually. This is really good.
I hope so. That was the whole purpose, because I know your reports are intense because there's a lot of months, right? There's 12 months, 30 days in each month, or 31 days. So you have lots of pages. The key thing is to pull out the most important days to you and to pay attention to, just take a glance at this highlight. The highlight page is your best friend, because it's going to cue you into, the report is automatically going to pull out the days that are of most importance to you personally.
Okay.
So if you don't pay attention to anything else, pay attention to the report highlights. Sometimes you will have a page, this person's got a lot. Other times you will have maybe one or two. Like in her case, February doesn't have any highlights. Yay! Right? Yay. That's going to be, a fairly simple month.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions from the peanut gallery? Michelle, you're quiet. You always have questions.
I'm just listening. You mentioned January 20th. What was that? I wasn't able to print my report out. So.
Okay, lunar eclipse.
Okay, I thought so.
That's the lunar eclipse across Leo and Aquarius. So, of course, you want to pay attention to that one because you're a Leo. Although it's at the beginning of Leo, and well, you're end of Leo.
Yeah, the 20th.
Yeah. So not such a big deal, but it's always important because if you have other planets in Leo, you're going to pay attention.
Yeah. The Sun, Mercury, and the Earth.
Sun, Mercury, Earth, what?
No.
No?
Sun, Venus.
Oh, the planets that you have in Leo. Is
Yeah.
that what you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? Colleen, how are you doing?
I'm good. I do have a question. What if in one house there's a lot of planets?
That happens frequently for people. So that means there's a lot going on. What house is it that's overloaded for you?
Mostly 7, 8, and 9 have the bulk of the planets.
So depending on the signs that are there,
Gemini, Virgo, and Leo.
so anytime you have a house that has a lot of planets in it, there's a lot of interference, a lot of activity going on in that house. So if it's the 7th house, for example, then that means there's a lot of different relationships. Like I see people all the time with several planets in the 7th house, and they're having multiple relationships. Like they've been married, they've been divorced, they've been married, they've been divorced, or they've got boyfriends and they break up, or they've got, lots of different things, because a lot of lessons are being learned in the houses where you have a lot of planets.
Okay.
And depending on what those planets are, that will flavor the lessons that you're learning, if you will.
Okay.
So give me one of the planets in your 7th or 8th house.
In my 8th house, I have the Sun, Mercury, and Venus.
What kind of work do you do? Oh, yeah. Have you ever done counseling work or anything like that with somebody?
Have I? I've done a lot of stuff. I'm a writer. I've written in every form of media possible.
Uh-huh.
I've taught English like on the college level as a professor. The bulk of my money comes from being a pet sitter, dog walk. That's probably what you remember. But like all degrees and whatever is in communications, journalism, English lit, like that.
So can I ask another question that's a little more personal?
Yeah.
Have you suffered abuses, sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse?
Yeah. Yes.
When there's a lot of planets going on in the 8th house, almost always there's some kind of major abuse that's gone on in your life. And a lot of times then the more inner work that you can do, clearing that out, beginning to see how you can be more loving to yourself and more kind and generous to yourself. Especially when you've got the sun there, that's like putting a ton of light on that particular kind of that kind of abuse, right? And transforming it. So people, the 8th and the 12th and the 4th house, those 3 are karmic. And so often we see karma coming in, right? So either you've agreed on some level to play this role for another person's growth, soul growth, or another person, the abuser, has possibly come in and agreed to play that role for you to learn whatever it is that you wanted to learn. It's tricky. The 8th house is not a fun place. Nope. I have real compassion for people that have a lot of planets in that 8th house, because likely there have been abuses going on. And it doesn't necessarily it usually speaks to sexual abuse, but it can be mental, it can be emotional, it can be physical, it can be spiritual abuse, it can be any of them. But that's what you're here in large part to transform that energy.
Okay.
What else did you have there? The sun, you had something else you said.
The Sun, Mercury, and Venus.
So Mercury would be communication, people verbally gunslinging at you. Mm-hmm. And even, your response back to that might be in kind. So you're learning about how to use your words in empowering ways. Maybe that's why you like to write, because in writing you can, number one, get down all your feelings without hurting anybody, or in some way that you can, transmute and transform things that are going on in your life depending on what it is that you're writing. So,
Yeah.
but I've seen, almost any house in your chart can be overfilled or underfilled,
It's my microphone.
right? Or have nothing.
Okay.
In fact, there's probably not enough planets unless you put, there's 12 houses and we have 9 planets. I use a whole lot of other things though. So some of your houses are probably empty. And if you put a lot of them in one house, then you've got several perhaps that are empty.
Yes. I have a lot of houses that are empty.
Yeah. You said the 7th, 8th, and 9th houses, right? Are that quarter,
Are really over. Oh, and even the 3rd has 2. Yeah.
So you've got probably 4 or 5 of them then that have
That are
nothing much
empty.
going on.
Yep.
And when you see that in a chart, you know that these are focal points. So if you guys have a lot of planets in any houses, those are focal points for you in this lifetime. If you've got 3 or more, especially. 2 is not that unusual, but when you've got 3 or more planets in one house or in one sign, then that's a big focal point. And most often it's going to be in 2 different signs, but sometimes they're all in one sign. I've got 5 planets in Leo in my 2nd house. So there's focus there, right? And Asmaya, did I see you raise your hand?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry, I've got the air conditioner on, so it's a bit noisy. I don't know how much.
We're freezing over here and you guys are in summer.
Yeah, I don't know, we were 40 yesterday. What's that, 120 for you?
I don't know.
I don't know, really hot,
It's
really,
hot.
really
Yeah,
hot.
it's
Yeah,
hot.
significant bushfire risk today. Anyway, so
It's
sorry.
really hot.
Well, it was 40
really hot.
degrees here today.
No, I'm talking Celsius, not Fahrenheit, girl.
Yeah. Mhm.
Sorry, I don't know what I missed. I think my modem's having a meltdown. But I've got 4 houses. Is the inner circle the houses, like where you've got the numbers 1 to 12?
The pie-shaped pieces are the houses.
All right, so I've got 4 in the 11th. I've got, yeah, so what's that? That's,
Well, the 11th house is the house of friends and associates. It's also the house of wishes and dreams or desires, it's aspirations or dream, the big dream. And it is also the house of money that you earn from the work that you do. Yeah,
so I've got the moon, Uranus, Pluto. I can't find number 4. Oh, and a node.
the north node or south node, the one that's facing up, or is it down, the open end?
Sorry, I've only got half a screen, so I'm a bit slow doing this.
It's okay. Essentially what it's saying is there's a lot of focus for you on groups of people and people
Facing
you associate with.
Sorry, facing up.
Facing up. Okay, so that's the south node. It's the past, right? The gifts and the talents that you brought here with you, your experiences. So there's a lot of lessons that you're learning about people that you are associated with, friends or groups of people. The fact that you put Uranus in that 11th house makes them eclectic, unique, eccentric even, and also given to ups and downs in those kinds of friendships. Different types of people, and at different times, the source of a lot of anxiety perhaps or problems. But that it's an important place for you to, it would say to me, especially with the south node there, that all of the relationships that you've entered into in this lifetime are karmic. And in some way you are learning from or dispelling, things that karma from other lifetimes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. All right, guys. If you don't have any other questions, Lisa, how come it's sunny at your house?
I live in California. I don't know.
Because I'm looking outside going, it's awfully darn dark, and why is it not dark where you are?
Yeah, it'll be dark soon. It's almost dark time. Just one last brief, make sure I'm understanding.
Sure.
The chart that you sent us is our birth chart.
Mm-hmm.
And then the pages following is for next year specific.
All of 2019, from January 1st through December 31st.
I just want to double sure.
So here's what I'll leave open for you guys. Any questions that you have, you can certainly email me anytime, because usually they're going to be pretty quick questions. Like, I see this happening here, or this says this. And, you know, these are canned answers to things, right? They're not, oh, and this is how you're going to experience this, Lisa. It's not really saying that. It's just saying you have to give something in order to get something. That's the message you need to take, blah, 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 right? So it's giving you generalities. And if you try to just pick out these things, these little things, you're going to miss perhaps the bigger picture. So don't forget that this is within the context of a bigger picture that is the wheel of your life. So yea, though it says, you know, this, or this may be happening that day, in the context of your whole chart is where it's taking place. So, for example, if in the context of your entire chart, you've been looking for a job, let's say, or looking at a career change, and this one particular day, it's saying, you know, this is a great day to, you know, try job search and that kind of thing, then I would pay attention to that. But if it says something like that on a day where you're not really in the grand context of things, you know, looking for new jobs, ignore it, because it probably doesn't have any real meaning to you. Maybe that's a day for you to work on your career that you have, you know, and maybe change some things in what you're doing personally. So it's a bigger picture. It's always going to be the bigger picture. But there are these days, you know, that have these things that are going on. If it's the moon, it's going to pass quickly. If it's the sun, it's probably going to last a day, and then it's going to, and maybe 3 days, right? Because the sun is going to move slower than the moon does. If it's a Mercury or a Venus or a Mars, it's probably going to last a little bit longer, maybe a week, 2 days to a week. When it's an outer planet, it's going to be a longer period of time, and it's not going to be as intense as it's going to be when they're inner planets. Does that make sense to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because the inner planets are closer in, they're personal to you. The outer planets are more collective in their effect. Okay. Suzanne, question?
Yes. Did you send that report through email?
The report, everybody who attended the webinar, the Astrology for 2019, got a free 12-month astrology report with it.
Okay.
And so because I realized that a bunch of people were going to get that report and be lost, I decided to do this webinar.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I don't remember, I don't think I sent you a report.
No.
But if you ever do get a report, now you'll know exactly what it's talking about.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. So, and it's good general information anyway, because every morning pretty much we're talking about the moon doing something.
Right. It helps on my page too, knowing what the moon is doing. It helps my page to do my page.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, any other questions from anybody?
Is there a way that I can check to see, sorry, I'll backtrack. The location, how important is it that that's correct? As in, because for me, I think previously when you did my location, you did it in a different state to the state that I was actually born in. So how can I
look at the first page of your report?
Which I'm looking at.
And what does it say? I mean, does that look right? The correct country, correct state?
It doesn't say state, it just says Carlton, Australia. Now, I know that when I had my private report with you, you had done New South Wales, whereas I was actually born in Victoria. And I did query that with you. So I don't know if this is...
How far away are they from one another?
Are you talking distance or hours driving?
Distance. Like a couple 100 miles or less?
Oh, easy. You're talking over a day driving.
So I'll have to take a peek at yours. I don't think it's going to make any difference. The transit reports, usually we don't put a place, but because your
Okay.
birth chart was attached to that, we'll definitely want to look at it. So
Yeah, because I think you said the similar thing last time. So I was born in Carlton in Victoria, but on my personal chart that you did for me, it
Okay.
came up Carlton, New South Wales.
All right, hold on. I think I can actually find your
And
report here.
I don't know if it'll actually say New South Wales or NSW.
Hard to say. Where's
And see, Carlton's only a suburb of Melbourne in Victoria, so it might be easier to put in Melbourne. I don't know if that'll change all of this.
Yeah, you're right. It just says Carlton, Australia. So it didn't. I think when I actually did the report, it gave me a choice. And having remembered when we did your reading, I believe I chose the Victoria one.
If memory serves me correct, you said the same thing, but you said to me that you chose New South Wales previously.
Yeah, but this one was just done in December after you and I did your reading. So I would have had a different idea then of where you were born.
Okay.
But I will be happy to check that for you, because if the latitude and longitude are too far apart, then we may have some changes.
Yeah, it might be easier just to put in Melbourne, because Carlton is like a suburb of Melbourne. Yeah. Do you want me to spell that for you?
No.
Yeah.
I'm on a radio show in Melbourne with Annette McCoy.
Yeah, I can never get that. Anyway, sorry.
On Blog Talk?
Yeah. Like I said, I've been having major internet problems here.
Oh.
Yeah, if you don't mind,
No,
I'd
not
really
at all.
appreciate it. Thank
I want
you.
to make sure you have the right one. Otherwise, you may have the houses. It's generally speaking the houses that end up different in that kind of a case. And if you're expecting things to be happening in your second house, but they really should be happening in your third, that could be a problem. So I'll check that out for you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Any questions, anybody else?
I do have a question.
Okay.
So in my second house, I have the sun at 26 degrees of Leo, Mercury 29 degrees of Leo, and then what's that second number?
Minutes.
Okay, it's 52. And then is it part of fortune at 0 degrees Scorpio at 52? So it's the same as, same minutes as Mercury.
But not the same degree?
Yeah, 29 and 0. So they're practically on top of each other.
Well, you said one was in Scorpio and one's in Leo?
Yeah.
So they're in totally different signs.
Okay.
But put them in a relationship that is very tight. So a square, actually. No, square. Leo and Scorpio are square to one another. So there's a challenge there to get what you like and want and love and desire in life.
But that's two, so that's money or second house. So it's how, I'm confused.
Okay.
I was thinking it was work, but it's.
Well, one of them's got one's in the second house. What's the other one in? It's either going to be
they're all three of those are in the second house. The sun, Mercury, and part of fortune.
Well, then they're all in Leo. Because Leo and Scorpio are not right next to each other, so they couldn't be on top of one another if they were in Leo and Scorpio.
I read it wrong. It's not, it's Virgo. Not Scorpio.
You're a knucklehead.
Hi, by the way, Stephanie.
Sorry.
Well, they both look like M's, right? One going up and the other one comes across. I could see how you could make that mistake. So it's not a big deal. It's just that your sun and Mercury are in Leo. Is that right? And the part of fortune in Virgo?
Sorry, I think that's fireworks. I'm hoping that's fireworks. Sun and Mercury in Leo, part of fortune in Virgo at 0.
So they're still in a conjunction. It's called an out of sign conjunction is all. So they're still really close together. Just one changed signs. So one of the ways that you find that you bring joy to yourself is when you're organized, when things are running like they're supposed to run, a well-oiled machine. But your Sun and Mercury in Leo are also fun-loving and just sort of let's go play and do whatever without a plan, spontaneous. Well, there's
then,
another part of you that likes the plan.
Definitely. I guess I'm not really familiar with the part of fortune. What is that?
The part of fortune is a mathematical point derived from the distance between the sun and the moon at your birth. Oh. And it's an Arabic part. It's a different form of astrology. And it is the part of fortune just says, where is it that you're going to find the most amount of joy and pleasure in life? Doing what? And experiencing what? And I like to see it in people's charts, because I like to know, like, if there's a bunch of other planets nearby, that, you know, how it might be hard for you to tease what you really love to do out of the cloud of planets that are there. So it sounds like in your case, there's this cloud of planets, Sun and Mercury telling you one thing, but this part of fortune that's kind of pulling you in a different direction. So it creates a conundrum.
Yes, I do. As you're saying, as you were talking, I remember us having that discussion before, which is probably why I forgot about it, because it was so confusing.
It is. It's not a big. It's not going to be delineated in your report, right? It's not going to say the part of fortune conjunct the sun. It's not going to say that. But I like to throw it in because I just like to see it, in case we ever want to have a conversation about it.
I have a question.
Thank
just sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Is a part of fortune? I was going to ask the same question. What is it? Because I can see it sitting, and it's for me hanging out. It's hanging out in my 12th house, which is the only thing sitting in the 12th.
Ooh.
Which is, yeah.
And what sign is on your 12th house?
Is it this? Is it this one here? Like, let's see. Oh, it looks like a V. Let's see. Capricorn.
Oh, Capricorn on the 12th house?
Wait, yeah, that's the one right between 11 and 12.
Yeah.
It says Capricorn. Yeah, okay.
And that's where your part of fortune is?
Yeah, it is.
So one of the ways, so
some
things that might be important to you to remember are things like your reputation, business, and how you're seen in your business.
Okay.
There's aren't you an Aquarian?
Yeah, rising.
You're an Aquarian rising. Mm-hmm. So you want to make sure that you don't get too aloof and standoffish. You know, you want to be able to be seen as personable and approachable. Okay. And yet a part of you with that part of fortune in Capricorn really does kind of enjoy that non-emotional attachment to business, or into, you know, approaching the way that you study things, or the way that you fear things, or the limits that you have in your life. It's kind of an interesting place for the part of fortune. You'd be really good as a counselor, or a psychologist, a psychoanalyst, right? Because they love to dig deep, and that's part of what you like, is digging.
That's what I thought 12 is that 12th house stuff that's kind of like deeper and digging. But I didn't know how part of fortune like interplayed with that. Okay, that's interesting. Thanks. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Okay.
Any other questions? No? All right. Well, if you guys have any questions about how to read your report, not necessarily, this really wasn't about the part of fortune or anything like that, but I'm happy to answer those kind of questions, and maybe I would do a different class on just that part.
I do have one more little question. Sorry, everybody, but this is just, and it's something you can maybe touch on. But I've got it says moon in 4th quarter, balsamic moon type. What is that? What is a balsamic moon?
The balsamic
moon is and it has, fast and all that. So I'm sure it sounds like there's lots of different types of moons and stuff.
Yeah, because it just depends on what phase the moon was in when you were born. So essentially, the moon was in its balsamic phase, and that colors your personality in some ways, your emotional. Some people may have a crescent moon that they were born in, the first quarter, the new moon, the full moon. Balsamic, I believe, is the closing phase. It's the phase before it's coming back to new. So there's a part of you that's really probably quiet and in internalizing a lot of things. You don't overly, gush things to people. You kind of hold things in reserve. That would be, and it's an interesting study to start looking. Here's one of my favorite books for studying the phases of the moon, and it's
cool.
the Jane Rudyard An Astrological Mandala. Now, he goes a whole lot deeper than that in this book. This is where every degree of the zodiac is defined. And it's, this is an older book, and it's,
Wow.
I don't even know if it's in print anymore.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious about that. It just sounded really kind of exotic.
Yes, it's an exotic word. It would be like the
or
Guinness
salad dressing. I'm not sure. Balsamic. I'm thinking, what is that?
having your moon with vinegar too.
Have that moon with vinegar. Yeah.
That's
Anyway,
funny.
thanks.
Yeah.
So I don't mean to get you off track or anything, but yeah.
No. That's a good
kind of
question.
funny.
I didn't even realize that showed up on the report. That's
Yeah,
pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, it's in the
So
chart.
You'll be able to tell what phase the moon was in when you were born.
Okay. Okay.
So cool.
Okay.
All right, ladies. Well, thank you for joining us. Let's see, Melanie, Mimi. I know you're muted, but if you had questions, you knew how to chat. So I don't see any questions there. Yay. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, ladies.
New Year.
Thank you.
Happy New Year to you. As always, many thanks. I may have questions in a day or so. If you guys have questions in a day or so, email me. I'll be happy to answer them. And take care, everybody. I hope you all had a happy Christmas. And now have a happy New Year. Of course, I'll see some of you tomorrow morning.
So sorry, is this recorded so I can see what I missed? Thank you. Yeah, sorry, just really quickly, I think you might have to look at my chart because it's got my ascendant as Scorpio, whereas I'm actually Libra. Your ascendant's your rising, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah, I'm actually Libra. So I don't understand how this has happened.
Well, it's easy to fix, so don't worry about it.
Cool.
Easy fix. So
Yeah,
I will take a look at, I won't be able to do that tonight. I'll look at that tomorrow and change that. If I have to make any changes, I'll just resend you the report as Maya so that you have the correct one.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You guys
Happy New Year, everyone.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Bye.